Hi everyone, I hope you are all doing well. Happy week before spring break. I know that you are all looking forward to some time off and hopefully the ability to catch up on some much needed rest. This morning I'm excited to introduce the second week of our learning module on gifted education programming. So remember, the majority of this class is spent on what does gifted mean, what are the characteristics of these gifted learners, and that leads us to understanding the importance of gifted education services. So with gifted education programming, we really start to look into what do these services look like. Are we providing enrichment services, acceleration services? Is this in the matter of pushing into the classroom or pulling students out? There is not one size fits all in terms of gifted education programming, which some would say is negative because, of course, it's more difficult in accountability. I always try to look for the positive, and I do think that since there's not one size fits all, if done correctly, we can really design gifted education services to meet the unique strengths and needs of our student population. So last week I had you look into a case study in which Mr. Draper is proposing a gifted education model for his program. You guys did a good job using the NAGC programming standards to analyze the strengths and areas for improvement in that particular gifted program. One of my favorite things in that gifted program is the very well thought out alignment. So not only did he propose a model for the gifted education program, but also a mission statement, and really worked hard to make sure that their services align with the mission and with the definition. One thing that we often see in gifted education programming is a very broad general definition of giftedness and then a very narrow area of service. This is very common, especially in South Carolina, since we identify in multiple dimensions. Oftentimes, gifted students will be identified because of above average ability in English classes, and then they are served by given accelerated math classes, which definitely does not align. So I think one of the main strengths that we see in this program is very careful alignment. As many of you also mentioned, this is a levels of services approach. Remember last week in my welcome video, I was very precise about gifted education services starting in the regular education classroom. It is so important that we really combat this myth that gifted education is only the responsibility of the gifted teacher. Regular education teachers almost hold equal responsibility, if not more, because all gifted services start with differentiation in the regular classroom. So it's definitely important to take on a level of services mindset, and I was happy to see that this gifted program was definitely aligned to that levels of services approach. The presence of a committee is also very helpful. Oftentimes, gifted education programs are designed and run by a single individual. That introduces lack of accountability, and it's important to collaborate when we're working to serve these students. Of course, no program is perfect, so I was happy to see that you guys also analyzed some of the areas for improvement. So jumping into this week's assignment, I like to give you this case study first because it gives everyone the practice of analyzing a gifted education program using those NAGC standards. And what we're doing this next week is very similar to your discussion post, but instead of based on this fictitious gifted education program, your challenge is to analyze a gifted education program in your area. So before I dig any deeper, let me clarify. This gifted program can be the program at a school that you are currently working with. It could be the program at a school that you attended. It could be a program at a school that is in your neighborhood, a program at a school where your child or your younger sister, nephew, niece attends. What I want you to do is choose a gifted program that you have some kind of personal connection to. So there's not really a limit on what that might be, but the closer the connection, the more meaningful this assignment will be. For example, if you are currently in a field placement, I would highly encourage you to investigate the gifted education program at your field placement. So the assignment for this week is called Your Gifted Programming Critique, and you're going to analyze a gifted education program that you are close to in one shape or form, and you're analyzing in 5 categories. So the first, how does your gifted program define giftedness? What is their definition of giftedness? And based on this definition, do you think it's a quality definition or not, based on the work that we've already completed for this semester? Number 2, how are students identified for these gifted and talented services? Do you think this is effective? Consider alignment in this case. Does their definition of giftedness align with their identification practices? Number 3, briefly describe the gifted services that are provided. Be sure you use some terminology here. So is this mainly an enrichment program or mainly an acceleration program? What is provided for these students? And lastly, number 4, what are the greatest areas of improvement? And number 5, what are the program's greatest strengths? So I want to be upfront, guys. You may not be able to find all of this information. If you can't, be very clear about that in your write-up. So it is okay to say, I have no idea how students are identified for gifted services. I looked on the school's webpage. I could not find any information. I tried to contact the principal and I didn't hear back. I even asked some of the students and they just said it was the smart kids, right? So as long as you are trying to gain this information, it is okay if you don't have an answer for everything, but I do want you to be very precise in your description of that. So as you are analyzing, it's important to use the material in your library to really give evidence to what you are saying, right? So if you don't agree with their definition of giftedness, tell me why. If you don't agree with their identification procedures, tell me why. This is, in my opinion, one of the more challenging assignments that we do in this class. It will take you some time, so please don't wait until the last minute. I'd encourage you to start investigating your gifted education program as soon as you can. And really dig into this. So what you're doing here is pure real world. Take a gifted education program that you have experience with and analyze it based on the best practices that we have studied. So to recap, you're looking for 5 things. How does the program define giftedness? How do students qualify for gifted services? Briefly describe what the gifted services look like. And finally, summarize some of the greatest areas for improvement and some of the greatest strengths for the gifted education program. As always, I'll be looking for this assignment to be completed by Sunday evening, although I would highly encourage you to get started as soon as you can. It is a very important learning experience to start investigating the gifted education services in your area, and it's almost more meaningful if you don't have all of the answers, because that is likely to happen in your future classroom. So as advocates for gifted children, it is important that we do the kind of grunt work and try to figure out what's really going on. You guys have been a wonderful class so far. I've been encouraged by how you've started to really dig into this content. I do think when you completed that gifted education flyer, I saw a shift in this class because I'm seeing you begin to start advocating for these gifted students, and the ability to analyze a gifted education program that is within your area is really important as you become advocates for these kiddos. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. I will be happy to meet with you, and I hope that you all have a wonderful week.